Oh yeah, segment 2. But you thought I was just trying to, throw signs or something like that there, right? No, I was actually counting in the music. It's a way to help me get my edits right on the video. Just a little helpful thing. No big deal. Anyway, welcome back. It is Thursday, May 1st, excuse me. And as we discussed last hour, it's May Day for all of those communists out there. And guess what? The commies are everywhere. And they're rioting, protesting. Let's look at some of this, shall we? This all over the X feed. King 5, so Seattle, very liberal area, very liberal news network. May Day demonstrations in U.S. and around the globe protest Trump agenda. Off of PD Scanner, chatter, up on X and retweeted by Ari Hoffman. Looks like a mess on 2nd and Pike. Seattle PD seems to have not gotten that intersection closed, or it's a demonstration they didn't have a handle on. Ari Hoffman comments, blocking streets is illegal. It's not a peaceful protest. Anyone see police anywhere? Yeah, these, this is why Eastern Washingtonians, I guess you could say, and anybody with common sense, we don't like Seattle. We don't like the West Side. We don't, for any reason whatsoever. It's not fun to go to. We don't care for it. Why would we want to go there? Beats me. Anyway, so those are going on right now. Again, peaceful protests. I'm sure there'll be nothing to it other than that, right? And the number of people that are doing this is probably pretty tiny. But, yeah. Anyway, let's... This is interesting. So a couple news pieces came out. The first was that Elon Musk, and this came out this morning. It was all over the social media feeds. That Elon Musk was going to be replaced as Tesla CEO. That Tesla's board had demanded. They started trying to find a new CEO, and that they were going to 86 Elon. Of course, it wasn't true. And Tesla and Elon are pretty pissed about that. I'll read you the initial tweet from Tesla. Earlier today, this is on X, by the way. Earlier today, there was a media report erroneously claiming that the Tesla board had contacted recruitment firms to initiate a CEO search at the company. This is absolutely false, and this was communicated to the media before. Now, remember, before the report was published. The CEO of Tesla is Elon Musk, and the board is highly confident in his ability to continue executing on the exciting growth plan ahead. And then it had the signature line of Robin Denholm. Now, so here's the thing. When this first came out, I was going to comment on it in either the first segment or this segment, that, wow, I hope that's not true, because it didn't go so well for Tesla without Elon. Tesla didn't really do a damn thing until Elon took over. And so I was like, wow, I really hope that's not true, because they're going to have to get someone who is absolutely the bee's knees to even remotely come close to where they were with Elon. And so that was what Tesla put it out, and it's been viewed 34.2 million times. Now, if they release this and they can prove it before the story went out, I would think that's lawsuit material right there. Now, of course, a lot of people have responded to this, that this is absolutely ridiculous, and that they need to be sued. The media, of course. Someone stupidly posted this, I think. Without Elon Musk as CEO, Tesla would be in a better position, and growth based on lies is not really exciting. He should have thought about it back when he bought into Tesla and took it over. Elon Musk destroyed the brand. How on earth do you reckon that? I mean, where was Tesla before Elon took over? What did they do? They didn't do anything. Tesla right now can rightfully say, and rightly say, that they are the reason why electric cars are anywhere near as popular as they are right now. 100% they are the reason. No doubt about it. And a lot of that's due to Elon Musk. So I don't know how you how you say he ruined the brand. Anyway, the guy's an idiot. Anyway, so let's hear what Elon said too, because Elon retweeted that. And it says, it is an extremely bad breach of ethics that the Wall Street Journal, amongst others, I would add, would publish a deliberately false article and fail to include an unequivocal denial beforehand by the Tesla board of directors. Now, of course, the reasoning behind this is it's all get Elon. That's what this is, 100%. I don't see how anybody could think it's anything less than get Elon. It is, totally. And like I said, I hope they go after, the Wall Street Journal and any other outlet that published this, because this is just stupid, absolutely stupid. So let's keep going on here. Here, let me see how many I've got. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Is that one the same thing? Yeah, 3. And we'll come to that. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So a couple of 2A things. This one's tweeted out by Gun Owners of America. Anti-gun owners, or anti-gun states rather, like Colorado, New York, Oregon, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Washington, and California treat shall not be infringed like a suggestion. But the Second Amendment isn't optional. It means what it says. We're glad to see that Trump's 2A task force is stepping up to hold these states accountable and defend our rights. Now, this is from the Glenn Beck show. Glenn Beck, of course, is huge. Haven't always been real keen on Glenn, but lately he's done some really, really good work. And anyway, let's listen to what he had to say on this matter.
The new project I've got going in the Civil Rights Division, to the surprise of many people on both sides, is the Second Amendment. Who's protecting the Second Amendment in the federal government? Prior Republican administrations haven't paid a lot of attention to affirmatively doing that. But, in the wake of clear guidance from the United States Supreme Court protecting our right to, own and use firearms in most circumstances throughout the United States, city after city, state after state are eviscerating those rights. They're mocking the Supreme Court by passing laws that make it virtually impossible. Colorado just passed a law that is extremely onerous and imposes a financial burden on gun ownership. California is wink, wink, nudge, nudge, allowing you to apply for concealed carry in multiple places, and then they don't staff the departments that make the interviews. DC, I came here to DC. I have a firearm. I'm a firearms owner. I inquired about the process. It's months before I can get an appointment with the chief of police or the police department to even apply to exercise my Second Amendment rights. Well, I'm exercised about that. I'm not happy about that. And I might be doing something about that. New York has a host of laws. They all violate the Constitution. So we will be working together to make this a focus of the Civil Rights Division, challenging state law that violates fundamental civil rights in the Civil Rights Division.
That's good stuff. I'm excited about that. But unfortunately, as always, talk is cheap, right? So it's nice to hear her say that, and it's nice to hear them say that. But I will be excited about it when we actually start seeing results, when we actually see major things being put forward. All right, so let's move to the Firearms Policy Coalition. They tweeted out about the law of, Duncan. Regarding the Duncan decision with the Ninth Circuit today. And California filed a supplemental brief. So California argues, okay, let me just read the argument here. As in Duncan, the more nuanced approach applies here because the chambering of ammunition in a modern semi-automatic firearm making it not obvious that the firearm is loaded, represents a dramatic technological change from the single-shot muzzle-loading firearms common at the founding, and the repeating Henry and Winchester rifles popular after the Civil War. Plaintiffs' claim to the contrary directly contravenes Duncan. But as in Duncan, the result of the inquiry is the same even under Rahimi's straightforward approach. So they're arguing something about the about whether or not it's obvious whether the firearm is loaded. Are you kidding me? You could tell right away whether a semi-auto firearm is loaded. Look if the action's open. Duh. Same thing as if a break open action or a bolt action, right? Look at the action. I mean, if you have a semi-automatic handgun, for example, okay, I have a Glock, right? I won't be able to put this on YouTube now. Big surprise. But let's say I want to tell if this gun is loaded, okay? Now, first of all, check and see if the magazine's there, right? Okay, the magazine is not in the gun. Next, pointing in the safe direction. Always keeping this in the safe direction. In this case, there's nothing outside the wall I'm pointing at. Open the gun and lock it open. Guess what? Now you look at the chamber, okay? Visually verify, manually verify. There is nothing in the chamber. The gun's empty. The action is back and locked back. You could put a flag in there. You could do any kind of thing. The point is that the action is unloaded. The gun is unloaded. It's not chambered. There's nothing in the gun itself. So I find their argument, frankly, stupid. Same thing with an AR. Pull the action back, lock it open, move the ping pong paddle down, so to speak. I mean, what idiocy. And by the way, somebody actually posted this, which is kind of what I was thinking too. Someone with the hashtag @no, KNOW that is, or KN0W. How the F word are you supposed to know when a muzzle loader is loaded? These people are mentally retarded that write these bills. Absolutely. How are you supposed to know if a muzzle loader's loaded? Do you look down the barrel? That seems safe. Are you kidding me? I mean, come on. And the same thing with the lever action. Open the action. Duh. Another one with the name McAllen. Don't you know that muzzleloaders were famous for having loaded indicators? Oh my gosh. Oh, I mean, honest to God, they need to, when they argue these cases, anybody who does 2A, they need to just just put it on Twitter and have the X-verse do the arguments, because good grief. California stupidity. It's truly staggering how dumb a lot of California rulings are. The Ninth Circus as well. All right. Anyway, come back to that one. Okay, this is interesting. So Costas Moros posted this. Time for a thread on the amicus brief submitted by the United States, and it's put with 3 exclamation points because the U.S., the government, submitted this brief. In Wolford versus Lopez. To my knowledge, it is the first ever Supreme Court brief filed by the U.S., meaning the government, in full support of petitioners challenging a gun law as unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. But someone correct me if I'm wrong in that assertion. The amicus brief in Heller that the Bush administration did was more wishy-washy, i.e., yeah, 2A is an individual right, but please remand because the analysis was wrong. So let's see if we can... No, it doesn't. Yeah, this is actually in support of Wolford against the Attorney General of Hawaii, which has never been done. I am staggered by this. It's so cool. Okay, so let's read some of this. Again, this was done by Costas Moros, who is a lawyer, I believe a lawyer that works on 2A stuff. Anyway, great introduction that goes into the ramifications of the vampire rule. And as our amicus brief will cover, this was intentional. The vampire rule was created by anti-gun academics who openly stated the aim was to discourage carry. Let's see here. This is why we insist on calling it the vampire rule in our briefing, a term invented by at 2A updates. It is not actually a default rule because it is not default for anyone but those carrying with a CCW permit. A whole bunch of other categories of people carrying are exempt. A sudden concern with private property rights from people who have never met regulations affecting private property they didn't love is totally phony. So shocking that Hawaii, a state which almost never issued CCW permits before it was forced to, is trying to undermine Bruin, which is 100% true. Theoretically, Hawaii was a May issue state, so a yellow state, I guess you could call it. But in truth, they never issued, as far as I know, they had never issued a concealed carry permit. I could be wrong on that, but I seem to remember reading, years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, that they had never issued a concealed carry permit, which is crazy. It might even be longer than that. There it is. Let's see here. In practice, the May issue regime operated more like a no-issue regime. In 2018, the Ninth Circus noted that Hawaii had issued only 4 concealed carry licenses to private citizens in the past 18 years, and that in one county, not a single concealed carry license had ever been granted. That's pretty interesting. Let me see here. I'm going to go back real quick and read some of these. Conspicuous sign law. Violations constitute mismanagement. Property owners do not post signs either allowing or forbidding guns. Hawaii's default rule functions as a near complete ban on public carry. A person carrying a handgun for self-defense commits a crime by entering a mall, gas station, convenience store, supermarket, restaurant, coffee shop, or even a parking lot. Yet, in the decision below, the Ninth Circuit upheld that rule against Second Amendment challenge. That decision warrants the court's review. Hawaii's novel default rule defies, indeed effectively nullifies, the, quote, general right to publicly carry arms, unquote, that Bruin recognized, which is true. 597 U.S. Code at 31, someone carrying a firearm for self-defense cannot run errands without fear of criminal sanction. In practice, only those who aimlessly wander the streets may exercise their right to bear arms, which, again, vampire rule. And Van Dyke, which we'll get to Mr. Van Dyke in a minute here, Judge Van Dyke of the Ninth Circus. Mr. Moros rightly says, if there is another open position on the Supreme Court, it needs to go to Mr. Van Dyke. He is the only conservative judge, really conservative judge out there on the appellate courts. And especially when it comes to the Second Amendment, he's fantastic. He was the one that made that ruling about guns, using actual guns to illustrate the position. So pretty darn smart there. Okay, let's see what this other says. Section of the conduct. The rule contains exemptions, including for off-duty police officers, retired police officers, and state employees going to and from work. That would make no sense if Hawaii were trying to protect private property rights. These exemptions only make sense if Hawaii were trying to limit arms bearing to select favored group and exclude everyone else. Totally true. Okay, let's move down now. Let's read the next part. Okay, next part. The Ninth Circuit acknowledged that its decision to uphold the rule conflicts with the Second Circuit's decision striking down a similar New York law in Antoniuk versus James. Cert denied, blah, blah, blah. Laws like Hawaii's have now been enacted in 5 states with a combined population of more than 75 million, i.e. more than a fifth of the total population of the United States. This court should grant the petition for a writ of certiorari, whatever. Anyway, limited to the first question presented. Okay, so Morris says on this one, I wish they didn't include the part about limited to the first question presented, but they are still the government and we should be happy to take what we get. Yes and no. The second question deals with the 1791 versus 1868 debate. I don't know why they don't want to settle that too. Perhaps they like using those later laws to defend certain federal gun laws that they do like, which I think is absolute. Next up. Let's see here. Yet the same person can carry all manner of other things, from chainsaws to brass knuckles to megaphones and picket signs without express permission. That special default rule for firearms violates the Second Amendment in both why and how it regulates arms-bearing conduct. And Morrow says, wait, you guys weren't carrying chainsaws? What? The purpose, to eviscerate the general right to publicly carry arms for self-defense, pretextually limiting the right to bear arms through gerrymandered property rules. This was actually a Ninth Circuit case. Project ADS versus Pocatello, Idaho, in other words. Under the Idaho Falls and Pocatello ordinances, residents who wish to receive uninvited door-to-door solicitors must post a solicitor's welcome sign. The government's imposition of affirmative obligations to the residents' First Amendment rights to receive speech is not permissible, which is rather interesting. The discriminatory rule manifestly seeks to suppress gun rights, not to protect property rights. Correct. It is no more constitutional than a hypothetical law requiring political campaigners, and only campaigners, to obtain a homeowner's express authorization before walking up to the front porch and knocking on the door. Yeah. Let's see here. Moreover, most of the cited laws do not go nearly as far as Hawaii's, so they are poor analogs. The Court of Appeals acknowledged that 4 of the 6 laws, the 1721 Pennsylvania law, the 1722 New Jersey law, the 1763 New York law, and the 1893 Oregon law, applied only to subsets of private land such as plantations or enclosed lands, sought, quote, to prevent poaching, and, quote, likely did not apply to property that was generally open to the public. And although the court thought that the 1771 New Jersey law applied more broadly, its text and context suggest that it too was limited to private land not open to the public. So this is the thing, though. Why are we citing law prior to when we were a country? That's the only thing I would say on that is what's going on to that? I don't understand why we would be worried about things that were under the British government. It wasn't even, colonial law at the time was British government. Anyway, yeah. So, 1 second. This is going to take a while, so I'm going to kind of cut this off a bit here. Anyway, the point is that it's nice to see that the government is actually on the side of the people for once. That it's actually doing the job of the people for once. Let me put it this way. This is rare and I love it. So hopefully, God willing, that will happen. Now, that's all good and fine and happy. But there's always a but, isn't there? Let's go and change. Well, first of all, let's take a music break. And when we come back, we'll talk about some of the topics we were going to discuss at the end of last hour that we talked about, okay? So we'll take a music break and we will be right back. You knew I was going to go to that one, right? You knew that. You had to know. I love me some banjo music. I just do. I do. I really do. All right, so let's go to some of these other ones. Now, we talked last hour about the psychopath that said Jesus was woke, and I told you when we when we came back, I'd introduce you to someone named Kyle. Now, Kyle is a young man, and Kyle's got some anger issues. Kyle apparently doesn't like his name. I don't know why. And this honestly could be just an act. Okay, it really could. It could be just an act. But Kyle apparently likes monsters. He's got 2 monster cans in this video that I'm about ready to play for you. And Kyle has a bit of a mouth, but Kyle kind of freaks out a little bit. Now, to give you an idea what this kid looks like, he's wearing what appears to be black cargo pants. Kyle has a gray t-shirt on with some kind of anime-ish looking figure on it. I don't know what it is. I don't even know if it's anime. On his right hand, actually both hands, it looks like, he has so many bracelets, it's kind of ridiculous. And they look like they're custom-made crafty things. He has grown out hair that's shaggy, I guess. Not super long. I mean, it's not like off of down to his elbow or shoulders or anything. But he has shaggy hair that covers his left eye entirely. And lastly, he's wearing a mask. Oh, yes, he's wearing a black mask. Because, why not, right? So I'm going to warn you, there is some language in this, so please do cover ears. This was originally posted by Libercrat, whatever that is, and then reposted by Defiant L's. So let's listen to young Mr. Kyle's tangent here.
My name is not fucking Kyle. Do not call me Kyle. Do not.
I love the
Do
music.
not call me Kyle. My name is Gord Bruce. If I see a single one of you calling me Kyle in my fucking comment section, I'm going to lose my fucking shit. I'm going to lose my shit. Do not call me Kyle. Do not. I'm not fucking joking. I'm not fucking joking.
Okay, so Kyle needs to get some anger management skills. Now, the problem with this is this to me is an indicator of a bigger problem. And the bigger problem is this. The inability of Gen Z, especially, to deal with any kind of thing that is not exactly the way they want it. For example, the name here. Also pronouns. Those aren't my pronouns. Stop calling me he and him. I'm clearly a she, he, or whatever it is, she or her or whatever. The whole I want to be this or I want to be that or the other. It's the inability of that generation to deal with anything that is not exactly the way they want it. They can't handle it. And that's concerning. That's really concerning because you should never have that. I'm Gen X, right? And we could you can call us pretty much anything you want. We're going to be like, whatever, dude. We don't care. And up until recently, I was kind of thinking that maybe that was the case for the baby boomers too. But boy, this Elon Tesla thing. Now, not all baby boomers, obviously. The earlier ones, to a degree, are a little bit better. I can tell you right now, my parents certainly would have never had this kind of meltdown when they were young, ever, for any reason. But yeah, that's considered not that big a deal. And of course, he gets his 15 minutes of fame by being retweeted here by Defiant L's amongst other people. So now Kyle is, of course, encouraged to do this again and again and again because, well, it just got him retweets, right? And that's the whole point of it. So hopefully Kyle will get some help and will grow up because that would be a definite good thing for him. Now, it's not just Gen Z. The millennial/Gen Y generation is that way too. And guess what? It's even in the representatives of that generation. Let's listen to Ilhan Omar talk to a reporter. I think it's Eric Doherty. No, it's somebody from the Daily Caller. This has been reposted by Eric Doherty. But let's listen to Ilhan Omar talk about this, shall we?
Congresswoman Omar, I'm Miles Morrell with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Do you think more of your Democratic colleagues should be traveling to El Salvador to advocate on behalf of Rodrigo Garcia?
I think you should fuck off. Yeah,
I'm sorry, what, Congresswoman?
Fuck off.
Who should?
You.
Why me?
We're not taking any questions right now, but here you go.
Yeah, thanks.
So, yeah, you heard that right. A sitting congressperson. Okay, these are supposed to be the people that are the best and brightest, right? The ones who represent you and me, okay? The ones who represent us. These are the people that, are setting examples for our kids, for the younger generation and whatnot. And this genius, this Ilhan Omar person who came here arguably illegally, I would, frankly, she's just, wow, she's something. Just told a reporter who is doing his job, he's asking questions, and guess what? If you are a member of Congress, you should be okay with taking questions. That's your job. You are answerable to the people. But Ilhan Omar, being a good liberal, no, that's not acceptable. She can't have that. She can't have someone question her. So she tells this reporter to, quote, F off. Twice. Setting a great example for the next generation, right? Hey, Mike Johnson, I know you don't really like to do anything, Mike, but maybe censure her for that. Because that's completely unacceptable. And by the way, I would say that if it was a Republican saying it too. I don't, your job is to be in the spotlight. Your job is to answer questions. That's you decided you wanted the job. So guess what? You need to do it. Again. Now, speaking of useless, the House Republicans posted a picture today. This was about 4 hours ago, and it says, "Your House Republican majority." It had them all standing on the steps of the Capitol. This was not a wise decision because they got absolutely brutalized. Absolutely brutalized. Derek Evans, what? Did you take this picture just to let us know you're back from vacation? Get your naughty word for hindquarters back inside and get to work codifying the Trump agenda. Gunther Eagleman, if you're the majority, why aren't you acting like it? Y'all are useless. Captain Corn Juice. Would be nice if y'all actually did anything, like at all. George Roll, really? You've worked for like 4 days out of the 100 President Trump has been in office, and you thought that a photo op would go over well? Get inside and do something. Eric, most worthless Congress in history. Now, I would debate that. I would say Paul Ryan's leadership in the first couple years of Trump was more so. Anyway, when will Trump EOs be solidified so they stop getting blocked in court? When will Doge cuts be solidified? What is even the point of you being in Congress? Nobody. How about you hats actually do something? Let's see here. Data 5. Why don't you pass some of Trump's agenda and stop posing for pictures? We don't care what you look like or who you are. We want Trump's agenda passed. Other than that, the vast majority of you are useless. Jared Campos. Now, do something for your country and not your wallets. And it goes on and on and on. It is brutal. And again, these are conservatives saying this. Not liberals. Sorry, the coughing. Oh man. It's interesting, the allergies. Anyway. But yeah, so this is just, they are just getting savaged. Absolutely savage. Oh man. And here's the thing. A lot of the times, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I think this is intentional. I think they're intentionally being useless. Like I told you, and have told you many times, the Republican Party, be it in Washington, D.C., or in Olympia, or in Eugene, or Salem, rather, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what state or if they're in the Capitol. It doesn't matter. They like being in the minority. Why? Because then they can represent you and not have any of the blame. You know, if they get up a Second Amendment bill, right, to ban something and it passes. Well, you know what? I voted against it, but it's those darn Democrats. Okay. Or well, we couldn't codify this, that, or the other. It's those darn Democrats. But if they're in the majority, then it's, hey, how come you guys didn't do this? What? Why? Why didn't you do this? Whoops. All right. Let's move on to Canada real quick here. Oh, one other little piece of fake news. This was fun. Before we do this, another big report today blew up my social media feed this morning. Trump's going to get rid of Mike Waltz, the national security advisor. He's on his way out. He's going down the river. Trump's getting rid of him. Turns out, yes, he is going to be leaving the national security advisor role because he's going to be the new UN ambassador. Yep. Marco Rubio is going to cover temporarily until they find another NSA to cover there. But, of course, the media was breathless about this. More of Trump's agenda's failing. See, nobody likes Trump. They were already getting ready to line up stories for Mike Waltz, right? The news media, the liberals, they were excited because, hey, here's someone who might kick Trump, you know. He might go against Trump. Oh, you could almost see it in the headlines, in the clickbait, right? They were so excited. They had him. Oh my gosh, they were excited. And then it turned out, he's not leaving the Trump administration. He's moving to a different role because it has to be done. They got to get that role filled. And frankly, Marco Rubio can do two jobs at once. He has actually done really well as Sec State. So he's going to do both Sec State and National Security Advisor until, like I said, they find another National Security Advisor person to get in and get done. So again, fake news, big surprise. All right. All right, we'll go and take a quick music break again, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about Portland, Canada, and a strange story coming out of California, which is interesting. We'll do that when we get back. Oh yeah, you gotta love the salsa music, the Habana, right? Very Cuban. Okay, let's get to this. Let's start with Canada here. We're going to start out of the country and then come back into it. The Liberals are melting down. Oh, yes, they are. They're having a cow because we talked about this yesterday. After the election, after Carney won the election, you had Alberta go out and say, yeah, you know what? We're going to pass this deal that's actually going to make it easier for us to secede from Canada, to get out of Canada, because you guys are a bunch of clowns. And of course, Alberta is the most conservative of the provinces, at least from what I'm told. But if Alberta goes, what about Manitoba and Saskatchewan? Because those two also voted apparently for Polvieri. They're fairly more conservative. Maybe not as conservative as Alberta, but kind of close. Now, in response to that, there has been a boatload of stories saying that, oh, well, this is just, they're not, this doesn't actually, it's not actually happening, and this is just overrated. This is all, fake news, and it's people trying to make a big story out of nothing, blah, 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 blah. Case in point, Carla Beck is the person who tweeted this out, and this is off of, I don't know, somewhere, a Canadian news network of some sort. And she posted this: "We need a united Canada. Talk of separation plays right into Donald Trump's hands. How did Scott Moe and Danielle Smith not get this?" All right, so here's the thing about that. Actually, let's listen to, this is apparently, oh gosh, what's this gal's name? It was right at the beginning. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it here. She is here. This is a meeting of some legislative body, Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan.
Speaker, the Premier has taken on a new conciliatory tone.
This is Carla Beck, Leader of the Opposition. Okay,
but
so
the fact is that the Premier's own friends, like Preston Manning, have suggested that the West would be better off separating from Canada should the Liberals gain another.
Now, she is, just sorry to pause that there, she is the head of the New Democrat Party, whose nominee, Jameet Singh, he was, I guess, a Sikh, a follower of the Sikh religion. But anyway, he apparently resigned following the loss to Carney. Anyway, so she is the head of that party in the Saskatchewan Assembly.
Their mandate. Premier Smith has said that she will hold a referendum on Alberta separating from the rest of the country. Mr. Speaker, this is hurtful to our economy. It plays into Trump's hands, and it threatens the future of this country. That's right. We need a united Canada, more now than ever before.
Now, I wonder,
will the Premier stand in this House today, and will he commit to Saskatchewan
Scott
people
Moore,
that he
the
will
Premier,
never hold a vote on Saskatchewan leaving Canada?
Okay, so here's the thing on that. I wonder what her speech would have been had Polvieri won and had somebody in, say, I don't know, Quebec or, Newfoundland, rather, excuse me. Newfoundland and Labrador, if they had did it, or Prince Edward Island, or, pick one. Nunavut, Yukon Territory, that type of thing. Any of the other provinces, if they had, any of the Liberal provinces, if they had said, you know what, forget it, we're leaving Canada, Polvieri is going to destroy everything, he doesn't support, so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. Would she have delivered the same speech? I'm curious. I don't think she would have. Personally, I don't think she would have at all. In fact, I think she would have been saying the exact opposite. Kind of like what happened with California. California all of a sudden starts putting out these, we're going to secede from the Union. And, of course, most of us are like, don't let the door hit you in the butt. By the way, you can leave the Central Valley and Northern California because they're actually not along with, the rest of the California area, the Bong Pipe. But I'm curious, would she have said this stuff had Pierre won? And of course, I don't think so. I don't. There's no way she would have said this. She would have said the exact opposite if she was going to say anything at all. But this just tells you they're scared. This gal is scared. They're scared that Alberta's deadly serious about this. And it seems like Saskatchewan's not far off this, because why else would she give this speech? And again, Saskatchewan and Manitoba are also fairly conservative comparatively to, like I said, the Quebec and that area. So we'll see what happens. I'm definitely going to be following this closely because there are neighbors to the north. And frankly, I wouldn't mind having Alberta as a 51st state. I think the Canadians would be absolutely giddy about it. Get rid of all the gun control. That's one of the big things that Alberta was not okay with. One of the things that Danielle Smith really nailed Justin Trudeau hard on is this, hey, we're not going to enforce any of these stupid gun laws you want to pass. No, we're not doing that. I mean, you want to talk about a boom for a segment of the economy. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the number of businesses in Alberta which would have their sales go through the roof? I mean, good grief. We'll see. Like I said, we'll keep an eye on this. I am very curious to see where it goes. I probably will be looking at Rebel News, for example, which is a Canadian broadcaster or podcaster, I guess it is, or news site, and we'll see what happens. All right. Before we get to Portland, I want to get to this one. This was in the Seattle Times. And again, I wish I could say, I wish I could say this is a joke. It is not. Governor Sideshow Bob Ferguson signed into law a bill, and I should have probably warned you to pull over because this might make your head explode, that prohibits the use of elephants, bears, wild cats, and non-human primates in traveling shows. So circuses, basically. So we are not in Washington State going to be allowed to have a circus that has elephants, bears, lions, tigers and bears, oh my. And I'm not sure what is a non-human primate. So non-human primate, I'm guessing, is like an ape or, a gibbon or a gorilla or something. What's a human primate? Is there racism there? Am I, what the hell is this? I'm curious about this. What is this? That's worrying to me. Now, of course, as it's widely pointed out here, notice he didn't say anything about clowns, so apparently him and Jay Inslee are going to be doing most of the act. After all, he is Sideshow Bob. So yeah, I guess him and Jay will be doing everything. I guess we'll go get to see them, juggling and doing the little running, rotating thing that they do. Awesome. I'm glad that our governor is interested in entertaining people. He's taking that seriously, which is very interesting. So yeah, awesome. Wow. Only in Washington. Sigh. All right, let's get to Portland because, when you have Seattle, you have to have Portland because Seattle and Portland love to try and outdo each other on the stupid scale. This is from Rolling Stone, which should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about the quality of the story here. Headline. Quote, "It's like a war zone," unquote. What happened when Portland decriminalized fentanyl? Subhead, after a failed experiment with legal leniency, Oregon's liberal stronghold tries to chart a path out of the fentanyl crisis. Can the city find a balance between care and coercion? This was posted, written by Jason Motley. Motley? I don't know. All right, let's read from this article, as much as I'm loath to do it. The man at the West Burnside Street bus stop looks stone dead, sprawled out on the sidewalk with his eyes rolled back. Lucky for him, he overdosed on a weekday, just 5 blocks from the downtown Portland, Oregon fire station, where the quick response unit is on duty, and they're on the scene in minutes. With the sang-froid of someone who has performed this ritual too many times to count, paramedic Justin De Jesus jabs the man's shoulder with a shot of Noxolone to reverse the effects of fentanyl, the hyperpotent synthetic opioid that is driving the U.S. overdose epidemic. His partner applies an oxygen mask, and slowly, the man's breathing picks up. After a quick knuckle rub to the sternum, he stirs back to life. But this brush with death is no wake-up call. Hostage to his addiction, the man shows no gratitude. He won't give his name and bristles when asked if he'd like more help. Before the first responders have packed up their kit, he disappears around a corner, presumably to score again. If someone overdoses to the point where they have to be revived, De Jesus later explains, they tend to seek out that dealer because, in their words, that's the good stuff. They'll just do a little less so they won't die. But since there's no standardization, you could be getting a fentanyl pill that has nothing in it, or 10,000 times the standard therapeutic dose, so you just drop dead. Drug overdoses killed some 87,000 Americans over a 12-month period ending in September 2024. More lives lost than the wars in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq combined. Although the death toll is down significantly from the peak of almost 114,000 the year before, by the way, that would be 2023, Oregon and other western states have lagged behind the downward national trend, making them ground zero of the decade-long fentanyl crisis. Nowhere has the social and economic impact been more acutely felt than in Portland, a proudly progressive mid-sized city of more than 600,000 that not long ago was one of the most desirable places to live in the country, despite stubbornly high rates of unsheltered homelessness and substance abuse. Okay. A couple observations just from the first 4 paragraphs there, or, well, 3 and change, I guess. The one paragraph is one sentence. Isn't it funny that first sentence in the 4th paragraph, drug overdoses killed some 87,000 Americans over a 12-month period ending in September 2024. So September 23 to September 24, 87,000. More lives lost than the wars in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq combined. Although the death toll is down significantly from a peak of almost 114,000 the year before. So let me get this straight. Underplugs, who was the president in both those years, we've had 100 almost or over 200,000 people die from fentanyl overdose or from drug overdoses. How many died from firearms related causes? I'm curious. And yet, and by the way, the right to use drugs is not a protected thing under the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. So I'm curious as to why we have politicians more worried about making it illegal for a law-abiding person to own an AR-15. They're more worried about that than they are about getting drugs off the street. Why is that? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Could it be that the cartels that are bringing this money in and the people who are also bringing in sex trafficking and every other kind of vice you could think of, is some of their money finding its way into these people's pockets? I don't know, but it makes one wonder, doesn't it? And again, of course, speak of the devil, Wall Street Journal thing just popped up. So much cocaine is being made that cartels need narco submarines to carry it all. Yeah. But let's worry about a law-abiding citizen having a select fire weapon or a short-barreled rifle or, a suppressor. What utter idiocy. Also, the drug overdoses peaked during the Plugs administration. Isn't that interesting? I wonder what it was under Trump. In late 2020, back to the article here. In late 2020, Oregon voters overwhelmingly passed the most liberal drug laws in the country, decriminalizing possession of small amounts of hard drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamine. Instead of jail time, ballot measure 110 aimed to expand addiction treatment services in a state that ranked last in such offerings nationwide, through hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue redirected from a cannabis tax and savings resulting from decreases in arrest and incarceration. Okay, so I'm going to stop this for just 1 second here. And I'm going to look something up because overwhelmingly passed, Oregon voters overwhelmingly passed. I wonder how overwhelming it actually was. So let's go on to our good friend Wikipedia. I know, not exactly the most reliable thing, but certainly we'll look at it here. Let's see. Oregon measure 110. Okay, this was 2020. We're not even close yet. Getting there, almost there, 2016. 2020, Oregon measure 110. Let's see where the yes votes were. Now, I'm going to actually pick up my camera real quick, and I'm going to show you guys what this looks like, okay? So bear with me. If you're watching on the video, you'll get to see this. But this is interesting because if you look, you see that the green areas and the kind of yellowish green areas, those are areas that voted no, whereas the blue areas are the ones that voted yes. Now, to the surprise of absolutely no one, the blue areas, especially the one that voted the most for it, the 70 to 80%, is in the Portland area. Next to that, in the next most how shall I say, positive or pro amendment or pro initiative thing, the 60 to 70% yes, were the counties right around Multnomah County. And then you go down to right near Eugene, weirdly enough. Isn't that interesting? There are pieces between Portland, Salem, or Portland and Eugene, all around Salem. Salem area voted no, interestingly enough, or I guess that might be up by Woodburn. I don't know. And then right down by California on the coast, you have some good liberals there, and they voted yes, but just barely in the 50 to 60% range. Now, you go over to the rest of Western Oregon, mostly in the Southwest, and they voted no. Again, just, but still. And also, like I said, the two counties right by Salem, in the Salem area and then right east of it, voted no. Now, you go over to Eastern Oregon, and it's overwhelmingly no. Like almost 100%. It is 100% no. The only two that were iffy a little bit were the counties right south of Yakima, and I would guess the Tri-Cities. So maybe a little bit more liberalization in there due to slightly, that's like the Hood River area, and then, well, somewhere around in there, and then going into like Hermiston, that kind of area. So bigger areas, slightly more liberal, but still no. So when they say overwhelmingly, yeah, it was 58.46% yes, but that's because Multnomah County, and I can't remember what the name of this other one is, where Eugene is, they voted very strongly for it. The rest of the state really didn't give all that much of a hoot about it. And the eastern side was vehemently against it. So I find that hilarious when they say overwhelmingly. Anyway, in late 2020, where was I? Okay, we talked about funding. Additional funding went to harm reduction services, Naloxone distribution, needles exchanges, testing kit that makes drugs, quote, safer to use. Now, we talked about that. What was it, yesterday or Monday, where, what's that reporter's name? Savannah Hernandez or something like that. She went to Austin, Texas, and came out with all kinds of drug paraphernalia from a harm reduction clinic, and it was encouraging drug use. Well, guess what harm reduction is? Drug use encouragement. Big surprise. Anyway, advocates hope to follow in the footsteps of trailblazing countries like Portugal and France, where nuanced approaches that prioritize healthcare over punishment have curtailed overdoses and public drug use. Sure they have. In some respects, it was the closest any place in the U.S. had yet come to the Wire's Amsterdam, a drug zone where police permit dealers to operate as long as they don't fight over territory and confine sales to a limited number of blocks, enabling addiction service providers to focus their efforts. Only Portland, only stupid liberals would honestly think that stuff would work. Anyway, the timing could not have been worse. Months into decriminalization, Mexican drug cartels ratcheted up the flow of fentanyl across the border and up the I-5 corridor, where it flooded into city streets, plunging prices to less than $1 a pill. As lockdown despair from COVID-19 scamdemic deepened, the killing of George Floyd sparked months-long racial justice protests that turned violent and engulfed parts of downtown. Wait, whoa, stop the tape. Turned violent? That was the summer of love, according to Jenny Durkin. What is this turn violent? These were mostly peaceful protests. That's what CNN said. And in local news media, what are they talking about, this turn violent? And in Portland? Come on. Antifa's there. They can't be violent. What? With police turning a blind eye, that's incorrect as hell. Police didn't turn a blind eye. The politicians that run the police turned a blind eye. What's his name? The governor of Portland at the time. Gosh, why can I not remember the name? Anyway, turned a blind eye. The mayor of Portland turned a blind eye. The county commissioners turned a blind eye. They ordered the police not to get involved, as I recall, similar to what happened up at Seattle. Police didn't turn a blind eye. They were made to turn a blind eye. Portland became a honeypot for local and out-of-state addicts to score cheap dope and use it freely. It was like a perfect storm that brought us from this really vibrant, amazing downtown to a tourist destination for drug users, said Rick Graves, a spokesman for Portland Fire and Rescue. Yeah, sorry, bud, but it had been going that way for a long time. Overdose deaths, retail theft, and homicides surged to record levels, running law enforcement and first responders ragged. We'd revive the same people and revive them again and again, said Dave Fredericks, a veteran paramedic and firefighter whose downtown stations responded to 36 overdose calls in a 48-hour period in the summer of 2023. And all I can say is, duh, what did you expect? I mean, again, only the stupidity of liberalism would think this is a good idea. That's the only group of people in this entire planet that would think decriminalizing, well, I'm sorry, it's not. Libertarians, apparently, some libertarians think this is a good idea. Would think this is a good idea. They would think this is a smart idea. Why on earth would anybody want to do that? It blows my mind, completely blows my mind. Clackamas County is the one I was thinking of. Oy. And so now that this article is very, 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 very long, so I'm not going to even close read all of it. And again, these people they have interviews with business owners here, saying, I can't believe this. This sucks. It's destroying our town. I just don't understand this. I mean, how do you not figure this is going to happen? And of course, they'll blame the scamdemic. They'll blame George Floyd. They'll blame everything but the root cause. This is a continual thing in liberalism. Blame everything but the actual cause. They will. They'll blame everything but the actual cause. Because if you actually blame the cause, the root cause, the real cause, well, then you'll have to fix it, which means you can't make up new programs to address the programs that already didn't succeed. And therefore, you won't, be able to sit there and say that you did that, so you might not get reelected. Oh, sad clown. Again, what did you think was going to happen? How did you not think this was going to happen? The stupidity is just staggering. All right. Last story for today. No, we'll do two, but I'm going to do these quickly here. Spokane. I told you Spokane was going sideways and rapidly. It is. Very, very rapidly going sideways. The Spokane City Council just passed a measure protecting alphabet rights and so-called gender-affirming care. This is a county in eastern Washington, right next to Idaho. Now, what really worries me about this is that if you haven't heard about what Washington's law regarding basically child abductions is, look it up. Basically, it is legal, according to Washington law. If a child comes over and says they are, what's the word they used? That they are seeking, how did that say that? That they're seeking treatment or something like that. gosh, what was it? Essentially, they can come over here, claim, for lack of a better word, asylum, and the state or any of the law enforcement agencies cannot notify the parents. Now, again, these are minors. They cannot notify the parents for 72 hours. 72 hours, 3 days. Three days. And that's, I've actually read the bill. And I mean, it's staggering. Absolutely staggering. And the fact that Spokane, the biggest city in Spokane County now, is totally fine with these rules protecting the alphabet spectrum and protecting genital mutilation, essentially, is very scary. So let's just real quick read this. The Spokane City Council voted 5-2 on Tuesday to pass so-called gender-affirming care protections while rejecting proposed so-called anti-trans amendments. The city of Spokane, Washington, this is the actual story, has passed an ordinance solidifying protections for so-called LGBT, well, it's alphabet, people and affirming the right to receive so-called gender-affirming care. The council voted 5-2 on Tuesday to pass the ordinance, which updated language in the city's Human Rights Code. Why do you need to have a Human Rights Code? You've got a Human Rights Code. It's called the Bible, it's called the Constitution, and it's called the Bill of Rights. The measure also directed the Spokane, let's see here, Human Rights Code, including defining so-called gender-affirming care, while mandating that city-provided health care cover the treatment. Right there. The measure also directed the Spokane Police Department to maintain an alphabet soup liaison officer to act as a point of contact. I want to thank, so this is Council Member Paul Dillon, who sponsored this. I want to thank all the powerful and heartfelt testimony in support of this ordinance that is about to supporting safety, freedom, and dignity. No, Paul, it is not. This is about supporting liberal agendas. This is about going after kids. It is far from anything relating to safety. Let's see here. Spokane is a city where diversity is not just accepted, but celebrated. And this ordinance shows our commitment to our city motto that in Spokane, we all belong, especially in a time of targeting and discrimination by the Trump administration and states that seek to ban care. Okay. Partisan politics. That's what this is. 100%. Spokane has completely gone away. I would not be surprised, again, and I discussed this the other day, if Spokane reaches Seattle levels of degradation and deprivation by 2030. It would not surprise me one bit if you walked into Spokane and there are people dead on the street, running around, evacuating their bowels on the sidewalk in front of people in broad daylight. Vagrants having sex in front of other people, like it is in Philadelphia and, other big cities. Like they were saying in, what was that park in Seattle where people are openly self-pleasuring publicly. They don't care. Who's going to stop them? That's what's coming to Spokane, folks. Oh, yeah. While Washington already had in place a shield or refuge law protecting access to so-called gender-affirming care, House Bill 1469 passed in 23, the city ordinance will specifically prohibit the city from collecting or disseminating information about anyone's sex, so-called assigned at birth, unless it's related to a criminal investigation. In other words, piss off, parents. Council member Jonathan Bingle, who now, boy, if you want a name that sounds liberal right there, Councilmember Jonathan Bingle, who voted against the resolution, but apparently is not a liberal, which is interesting, who voted against the resolution alongside Councilmember Michael Cathcart. So at least two people are doing their jobs, protested the ordinance by proposing several amendments, including some which would have banned so-called transgender people from using restrooms or participating on sports teams that align with their so-called gender identity, and prohibited those under 18 from receiving so-called gender-affirming care. The amendments ultimately failed to pass. So in other words, what I just said, They're going after the kids right here. Now, what they could do is call California, since California says it's okay to sexually proposition 16 and 17-year-olds. Maybe that's the next thing Spokane needs to do, is say, you know what, prostitution by 16 and 17-year-olds, perfectly 100% legal. Let's see here. President Trump, they say Donald Trump, of course, because this is in The Advocate, which is a Alphabet Soup, pro-Alphabet Soup publishing site. And again, I shouldn't say Alphabet, pro-Alphabet People publishing site. I said Alphabet Soup. I shouldn't say that. Sorry. And I say Alphabet because I don't want to leave anybody out. They said LGBTQ, so-called TQ plus, and then you go down to the bottom and it's like 5 other things added onto that. That's yikes. Anyway, President Trump signed an executive order in January attempting to prohibit so-called gender-affirming care for those under 19, which has since been blocked by a federal judge, illegally might I add, after the Democrat Attorney General of Washington, Oregon, and Minnesota filed a lawsuit against the administration accusing it of overstepping presidential authority. Yeah, the federal judge can't do that legally, but hey, Republicans aren't going to stop him, so whatever. The American Medical Association, American Psychiatric Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the World Medical Association, the World Health Organization all agree that so-called gender-affirming care is evidence-based and medically necessary not just for adults but minors as well. And they're all a bunch of insane lunatics. The WHO, really? All these people are raging liberals. There is nothing medically necessary about telling a kid who hasn't even, gone through puberty yet that, oh, by the way, yeah, it's fine. You need to have your private parts chopped off. There is nothing medically sound about that. Not one thing. First, do no harm. That blatantly goes against it. Alphabet people deserve the freedom to make their own healthcare decisions and deserve to feel safe in our community. They don't now? Said Council Member Zach Zappone. That freedom and safety are under threat across the country. No, Zach, they're not. This ordinance ensures that the city continues to protect Alphabet people and they know that Spokane, we all belong. Okay, did they not before? Because I can tell you right now, there are gay people that have lived in Spokane for years, decades. There are so-called trans people who have lived in Spokane for decades and never had problems, ever. I mean, the whole alphabet spectrum here has lived in Spokane for decades, probably never had problems. And yet now, all of a sudden, oh, there's lots of problems. BS. This hate is largely made up, not always, but largely. It's largely made up to get liberalism advanced. Just saying. Anyway, I would not recommend going to Spokane in the near future because it's going to get very bad. Like I said, by 2030, it'll look a lot like the worst parts of Seattle. Guaranteed. All right, folks, this has been the second segment of the Chris Richman Show for Thursday, May 1st, 2025. Took me a second there to make sure I had that right. And we will see you soon. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Hopefully you got some things done today on the first of the month. But as always, be safe and, of course, go with God.